Dumbledore reckons you know who's getting stronger again as well, Ron whispered. Everything Harry had seen in the pensive, nearly everything Dumbledore had told and shown him afterwards, he had now shared with Ron and Hermione, and, of course, with Sirius, to whom Harry had sent an owl the moment he had left Dumbledore's office. Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat up late in the common room once again that night, talking it all over until Harry's mind was reeling, until he understood what Dumbledore had meant about a head becoming so full of thoughts that it had been a relief to siphon them off. Ron stared into the common room fire. Harry thought he saw Ron shiver slightly, even though the evening was warm. "And he trusts Snape," Ron said. "He really trusts Snape, even though he knows he was a Death Eater." "Yes," said Harry. Hermione had not spoken for 10 minutes. She was sitting with her forehead in her hands, staring at her knees. Harry thought she, too, looked as though she could have done with the pensive. "Rita Skeeter," she muttered fondly. "How can you be worried about her now?" said Ron in disbelief. "I'm not worried about her," Hermione said to her niece. "I'm just thinking. Remember what she said to me in the Three Broomsticks? I know things about Ludo Bagman that would make your hair curl. This is what she meant, isn't it? She reported his trial. She knew he would pass information to the Death Eaters. And Winky too. Remember, Mr. Bagman is a bad wizard. Mr. Crouch would have been furious he got off. He would have talked about it at home. Yeah, but Bagman didn't pass information on purpose, did he?" Hermione shrugged. "And Fudge reckons Madame Maxime attacked Crouch?" Ron said, turning to Harry. "Yeah," said Harry, "but he is only saying that because Crouch disappeared near the Box Baron's carriage. We never saw her, did we?" said Ron slowly. "Mind you, she's definitely got giant blood, and she doesn't want to admit it." "Of course she doesn't," said Hermione sharply, looking up. "Look what happened to Harry when Rita found out about his mother. Look at Fudge jumping to conclusions about her just because she is part giant. Who needs this sort of prejudice? I would probably say I had big bones if I knew that it would get him for telling the truth." Hermione looked at her watch. "We haven't done any practicing," she said, looking shocked. "We were going to do the impediment jinx. We'll have to really get down into it tomorrow. Come on, Harry. You need to get some sleep." Harry and Ron went slowly upstairs to their dormitory. As Harry pulled on his pajamas, he looked over at Neville's bed. True to his word to Dumbledore, he had not told Ron and Hermione about Neville's parents. As Harry took off his glasses and climbed into his first poster, he imagined how it must feel to have parents still living, but unable to recognize you. He often got sympathy for strangers for being an orphan, but as he listened to Neville's snores, he saw that Neville deserved it more than he did. Lying in the darkness, Harry felt a rush of anger and hate towards the people who had tortured Mr. and Mrs. Longbottom. He remembered the jeers of the crowd as Crouch's son and his companions had been dragged from the court by the Dementors. He understood how they had felt. And then he remembered the milk-white face of Screaming Boy and realized with a jolt that he had died a year later. It was Voldemort, Harry thought, staring up at the canopy of his bed in the darkness. It all came back to Voldemort. He was the one who had torn these families apart, who had ruined all these lives. Ron and Hermione were supposed to be revising for their exams, which would finish on the day of the third task, but they were putting most of their efforts into helping Harry prepare. "Don't worry about it," said Hermione shortly, when Harry pointed at this hour to them and said he didn't mind practicing on his own for a while. "At least we'll get top marks in defense against the dark arts. We would never have found out about all these hexes in class." "Good training for when we are all aurors," said Ron excitedly, attempting the impediment jinx on a wasp that was buzzed into the room and making it stop dead in the mid-air. The mood in the castle as they entered June became excited and tense again. Everything was looking forward to the third task, which would take place a week before the end of the term. Harry was practicing hexes in every available moment. He felt more confident about this task than either of the others. Difficult and dangerous though it would undoubtedly be, Moody was right. Harry had managed to find his way past monstrous creatures and enchant barriers before now, and this time he had some chance to prepare himself for what lay ahead. Tired of walking in them all over the school, Professor McGonagall had given Harry permission to use the empty Transfiguration classroom at lunchtimes.
The impediment jinx a spell to slow down and obstruct attackers, the reductor course, which would enable him to blast solid objects out of his way. And the 4-point spell, a useful discovery of Hermione's, which would make his 1 point due north, therefore enabling him to check whether he was going in the right direction within the maze. He was still having trouble with the shield charm, though. This was supposed to cast a temporary invisible wall around himself that deflected Minor's curses. Hermione managed to shatter in with a well-placed jelly legs jinx. Harry walked around the room for 10 minutes afterwards before she had looked up the counter jinx. "You're still doing really well, though," Hermione said encouragingly, looking down her list and crossing off those spells they had already learned. "Some of these are bound to come in handy." "Come and look at this," said Ron, who was standing by the window. He was staring down in the grounds. "What's Malfoy doing?" Harry and Hermione went to see. Malfoy, Grub, and Goyle were standing in the shadow of a tree below. Grubby and Goyle seemed to be keeping a lookout. Both were smirking. Malfoy was holding his hand up to his mouth and speaking into it. "He looks like he's using a walkie-talkie," said Harry curiously. "He can't be," said Hermione. "I've told you, these sort of things don't work around Hogwarts. Come on, Harry," she added briskly, turning away from the window and moving back into the middle of the room. "Let's try that shield charm again." Sirius was sending daily owls now. Like Hermione, they seemed to want to concentrate on getting Henry through the last task before they concerned themselves with anything else. He reminded Harry in every letter that whatever might be going on outside the walls of Hogwarts was not Harry's responsibility, nor was it within his power to influence it. "If Voldemort is really getting stronger again," he wrote, "my priority is to ensure your safety. He cannot hope to lay hands on you while you are under Dumbledore's protection, but all the same, take no risk, concentrate on getting through that maze safely, and then we can turn our attention to other matters." Harry's nerves mounted as June as the 24th drew closer, but they were not as bad as those he had before, the first and second tasks. For one thing, he was confident that this time he had done everything in his power to prepare for the tasks. For another, this was the final hurdle, and however well or badly he did, the tournament would at last be over, which would be an enormous relief. Breakfast was very noisy affair at the Gryffindor table on the morning of the third task. The post owls appeared, bringing Harry a good luck card from Sirius. It was only a piece of parchment, folded over, bearing a muddy paw print on its front, but Harry appreciated it all the same. A scratch owl arrived from Hermione, carrying her morning copy of the Daily Fopet as usual. He unfolded the paper, glanced at the front page, and spat out a mouthful of pumpkin juice all over it. "What?" said Harry and Ron together, staring at her. "Nothing," said Hermione quickly, trying to shove the paper out of sight, but Ron grabbed it. They stared at the headline and said, "No way, not today, that old cow." "What?" said Harry. "Rita Skeeter again?" "No," said Ron, and just like Hermione, he attempted to push the paper out of sight. "It's about me, isn't it?" said Harry. "No," said Ron, its entirely unconvincing tone. But before Harry could demand to see the paper, Draco Malfoy shouted across the great hall from the Slytherin table. "Hey, Potter. Potter, how's your head? Are you feeling all right? Sure you are not going to go berserk on us?" Malfoy was holding a copy of the Daily Fopet too. Slytherin up and down the table was sniggering, twisting in their seats to see Harry's reaction. "Let me see it," Harry said to Ron. "Give it her." Very reluctantly, Ron handed over the newspaper. Harry turned it over and found himself staring at his own picture, Bennett's banner headline, "Harry Potter, Disturbed and Dangerous." "The boy who defeated he who must not be named is unstable and possibly dangerous," writes Rita Skeeter, special correspondent. "Alarming evidence has recently come to light about Harry Potter's strange behavior, which casts doubts upon his suitability to compete in a demanding competition like the Triwizard Tournament, or even to attend Hogwarts School. Potter, the Daily Fopet, can exclusively regularly collapse at school, and is often heard to complain of pain in the scar on his forehead, relic of the
Defense League, who wished to remain unnamed, stated that he would regard any wizard who could speak Basildon as worthy of investigation. "Personally, I would be highly suspicious of anybody who could conserve with snakes, as serpents are often used in the worst kinds of dark magic and are historically associated with evilness. Similarly, anyone who seeks out the company of such vision creatures as werewolves and giants would appear to have a fondness for violence. Albus Dumbledore should surely consider whether a boy such as this should be allowed to compete in the Triwizard Tournament. Some fear that Potter might resort to the dark arts in his desperation to win the tournament, the third task of which takes place this evening." "Gone off a bit, hasn't she?" said Harry lightly, folding up the paper. Over on the Slytherin table, Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle were laughing at him, tapping their heads with their fingers, pulling grotesquely mad faces, and waggling their tongues like snakes. "How did she know you scare her in divination?" Ron said. "There's no way she was there. There's no way she could have heard." "The window was open," said Harry. "I opened it to breathe." "You were at the top of North Tower," Hermione said. "Your voice couldn't have carried all the way down to the grounds." "Well, you are the one who's supposed to be researching magical methods of bugging," said Harry. "You tell me how she did it." "I've been trying," said Hermione, but an odd, a dreamy expression suddenly came over Hermione's face. She slowly raised her head and ran her fingers through her hair. "Are you all right?" said Ron, frowning at her. "Yes," said Hermione breathlessly. She ran her fingers through her hair and then held her hand up to the mouth, as though speaking into an invisible walkie-talkie. Harry and Ron stared at each other. "I've had an idea," Hermione said, gazing into space. "I think I know, because then no one would be able to see even Moody, and she'd have been able to get onto the window ledge. But she's not allowed. She's definitely not allowed. I think we've got her. Just give me 2 seconds in the library just to make sure." With that, Hermione seized her school bag and dashed out the great hall. "Or," Ron called after her, "we've got our History of Magic exam in 10 minutes. Blimey," he said, turning back to Harry. "She must really hate that Skeeter woman to risk missing the start of an exam. What are you going to do in Barnes' class? Read again?" Exempt from the end of term test as Triwizard champion. Harry had been sitting at the back of every exam class so far, looking up fresh hexes for the third task. "I suppose so," Harry said to Ron, but just then Professor McGonagall came walking along the Gryffindor table towards him. "Potter, the champions are congregation in the chamber of the hall after breakfast, she said. But the task's not till tonight, said Harry, accidentally spilling scrambled eggs down his front, afraid he had mistaken the time. I'm aware of that, Potter, she said. The champions' families are invited to watch the final task, you know. This is simply a chance for you to greet them. She moved away. Harry gaped after her. She doesn't expect the Dursleys to turn up, does she? He asked Ron blankly. Do not, said Ron. Harry, I'd better hurry. I'm going to be late for beans. See you later. Harry finished his breakfast in the empty great hall. He saw Fleur Delacour get up from the Ravenclaw table and join Cedric as he crossed to the side chamber and entered. Crumb slouched off to join them shortly afterwards. Harry stayed where he was. He really didn't want to go into the chamber. He had no family who would turn up to see him risk his life anyway. But just as he was getting up, thinking that he might as well go up to the library and do a spot more hex revision, the door of the side chamber opened and Cedric stuck his head out. Harry, come on, they are waiting for you. Utterly perplexed, Harry got up. The Dursleys couldn't possibly be here, could they? He walked across the hall and opened the door into the chamber. Cedric and his parents were just inside the door. Victor Crumb was over in a corner, conversing with his dark-haired mother and father in rapid Bulgarian. He had inherited his father's hooked nose. On the other side of the room, Fleur was jabbering away in French to her mother. Fleur's little sister, Gabriella, was holding her mother's hand. She waved at Harry, who waved back. Then he saw Mrs. Weasley and Bill standing in front of the fireplace, beaming at him. Surprise, Mrs. Weasley said excitedly, as Harry smiled broadly and walked over to them. Thought we'd come and watch you, Harry. She bent down and kissed him on the cheek. You all right? Said Bill, grinning at Harry and shaking his head. Charlie wanted to come, but he couldn't get time off. He said you were incredible against Horntail. Fleur Delacour, Harry noticed, was eyeing Bill with great interest over her mother's shoulder. Harry could tell she had no objection whatsoever to long hair of Erin with fangs on them. This is really nice of you, Harry muttered to Mrs. Weasley. I thought for a moment the Dursleys, said Mrs. Weasley, pursed her lips. She had always refrained from criticizing the Dursleys in front of Harry, but her eyes flashed every time they were mentioned. It's great being back here, said Bill, looking around the chamber. Violet, the fat lady's friend, winked at him from her frame. Haven't seen this place for 5 years. Is that picture of the Mad Knight still around, Sir Cadogan? Oh, yeah, said Harry, who had met Sir Cadogan and the previous year. And the fat lady, said Bill. She was here in my time, said Mrs. Weasley. She gave me such a telling off one night when I got back to the dormitory at 4 in the morning. What were you doing out of your dormitory at 4 in the morning? Said Bill, serving Mrs. Weasley with amazement. Mrs. Weasley grinned, her eyes twinkling. Your father and I had been for a night-time stroll, she said. He got caught by Apollyon Pringle. He was the caretaker in those days. Your father still got the marks. Fancy giving us a tour, Harry? Said Bill. Yeah, okay, said Harry, and they made the...
currently stand tied in first place on 85 points each. Mr. Craddock Diggory and Mr. Harry Potter, both of Harvard School. The Beals and a pose sent birds from the Fordham forest fluttering into the darkening sky. In second place, on 80 points, Mr. Victor Crumb of Dromerston Institute, more a pose, and in third place, Mr. Flo Delacour of Buckbonton's Academy. Harry could just make out Mr. Weasley, Bill, Ron, and Hermione applauding Fleur politely. Halfway up the stands, he waved up at them, and they waved back, beaming at him. So, on my whistle, Harry and Cedric, said Bagman. 3, 2, 1. He gave a short blast on his whistle, and Harry and Cedric hurried forwards into the maze. The towering Hudgens cast back shadows across the path, and whether because they were so tall and thick, or because they had been entrenchment, the second of the surrounding crowd whistled the moment they entered the maze. Harry felt almost as though he was underwater again. He pulled out his wand, mounted it, and had Cedric do the same just behind him. After about 50 yards, they reached a fork. They looked at each other. "See you," Harry said, and they took the left one while Cedric took the right. Harry had Bagman's whistle from the second time. Crumb had entered the maze. Harry set up. His chosen path seemed completely decided. He turned right and hurried on, holding his wand high over his head, trying to see as far ahead as possible. Still there nothing in sight. He whispered to his wand, holding it flat in his palm. The wand spun around once and pointed towards his right into soiled hands. What way was north? And he knew that he needed to go northwest for the center of the maze. The best he could do was to make the left fork and go right again as soon as possible. Ahead was empty too, and when Harry reached a right turn and took it, he again found his way unblocked. Harry didn't know why, but the lack of upstates was unnerving him. Thoroughly, he should have met something by now. It felt as though the maze was luring him into a false sense of security. Then he had a moment right behind him. He held out his hand, ready to attack, but its beam fell only upon Cedric, who had just hurried out of path of the right-hand side. Cedric looked severely shaken. His sleeve of his rubbers was smoking. Hardly the blast ended, screamed. He hissed, "They're enormous, I only just go away." He shook his head and dived out of 6 along another path, keen to put plenty of distance between himself and the scared Harry carried off again. Then As he turned a corner, he saw a Demeter was gliding towards him, 12 feet tall, its face hidden by its hood, its writhing, scabbard hands outstretched. It advanced, sensing its wave blindly towards him. Harry could hear its raging breeze. He felt clammy coldness stealing over him, but knew what had to do. Disarmed, he hastened through the could concentrate with all his mind on the thrill of getting out of the maze and celebrating with Ron and Hermione. Reach his wand until the silver stang erupted from the end of Harry's wand and galloped towards the Demeter, which fell back and tripped over the hem of his robes. Harry had never seen a Demeter stumble. "Hang on!" she shouted, advancing to the wake of his silver patrons. You're boggart." There was a loud crack and the shipper exploded in a wisp of smoke. The silver stand faded from sight. Harry wished it could have stalled. He could have used some company. As quickly as possible, listening hard, with what held high once more. Left, right, left again, till he found himself facing dead ends. He did the 4-point spell again, and found that he was going too far east. He, turning back, took a right turn and saw an old golden mist floating ahead of him. Harry approached it cautiously, pointing the wad's beam at it. This looked like some kind of enchantment. He wondered whether he might be able to blast it out of the way. Spell shot stranding through the mist, leaving it intact. He supposed he should have known better. The record course was for soiled objects. What would happen if they walked through the mist? Was it worth changing it, or shouldn't he double back? He was still hesitating when a scream shattered the silence. "Fleur!" Harry yelled. There was silence. He stared all around. What had happened to her? Her scream seemed to have come from somewhere ahead. He took a deep breath and ran through the enchantment mist. The world turned upside down. Harry was hanging from ground, with his hair on end, his glasses dangling off his nose, threatening to fall into the bottomless skies. He clutched them to the end of his nose and hung there, terrified. It felt as though his feet were cleared to the grass, which had now become the ceiling below him. The dark, star-spangled heavens screeched endlessly. He felt as though if he tried to move one of his feet, he would fall away from earth completely. Think, he told himself as all the blood rushed to his head. Think, but not one of the spells he had practiced had been designed to combat a sudden resurgence of ground and sky. Did he dare move his foot? He could hear the blood pounding in his ears. He had two choices: try and move, or stand up red sparks and get rescued and disqualified from the task. He shut his eyes so he wouldn't be able to see the view of endless space below him, and pulled his right foot as hard as he could away from the grassy ceiling. He passed at the junction of two paths and looked around for some sign of flare. He was sure it had been she who had screamed. What had she meant? Was she all right?
Yeah, panted Cedric. Yeah, I don't believe it. He crept up behind me. I heard him. I turned around and he had his wand on me. Cedric got up. He was still shaking. He and Harry looked down at Crumb. I can't believe this. I thought he was all right, Harry said, strained at Crumb. So, did I say, Cedric? Did you hear Fleur scream Ariel? Said Harry. Yeah, said Cedric. You don't think Crumb got hurt too? I don't know, said Harry slowly. Should we leave him here? Cedric muttered. No, said Harry. I reckon we should send up Red Spark, someone come and collect him. Otherwise, he'll probably be eaten by a script. He deserved it, Cedric muttered, but all the same he raised his wand and shot a shower of red sparks into the air, which hovered high above Crumb, marking the spot where he lay. Harry and Cedric stood there in the darkness for a moment, looking around them. Then Cedric said, Well, I suppose we'd better go on. What? Said Harry. Oh, yeah, right. It was an odd moment. He and Cedric had been briefly united against Crumb. Now the fact that they were opponents came back to them both. They protested up the dark path without speaking. Then Harry turned left and Cedric right. Cedric's footsteps soon died away. Harry moved on, continuing to use the 4-point spell, making sure he was moving in the right direction. It was between him and Cedric now. His desire to reach the cup first was now burning stronger than ever, but he could hardly believe what he'd just seen Crumb do. The use of an unforgivable curse on a fellow human being meant a lifetime in Azkaban. That was what Moody had told them. Crumb's theory couldn't have wanted that wizard cup that badly. Harry sped up. Every so often he hit more dead ends, but the increasing darkness made him feel sure he was getting near the heart of the maze. Then, as he strode down the long straight path, he saw movement once again, and his beam of want light hit an extraordinary creature, one which he had only seen in picture form in his monster book of monsters. It was a sphinx. It had the body of overlarge lion, great cloud paws, and a long yellowish tail, ending it in a brown tuft. Its head, however, was that of a woman. She turned her long almond-shaped eyes upon Harry as they approached. He raised his wand, his seat. She was not crushing as if to spring, but pacing from side to side of the path, blocking his progress. Then she spoke in a deep, hoarse voice. "You are very near to your goal. The quickest way in the past me. So will you move, please?" said Harry, knowing what the answer was going to be. "No," she said, continuing to pace. "Not unless you can answer my riddle. Answer on your first guess. I let you pass. Answer wrongly, I attacked. Remain soon. I will let you walk away from me." Harry's stomach slipped several notches. It was Hermione who was God at this sort of thing, not him. He wagged his chins. If she riddle was too hard, he could keep silent, get away from the unharmed, and try and find an interesting road to the center. "Ok," he said, "can I hear the riddle?" The Sphinx sat down upon her hind legs in the very center of the path and recited. "First think of the person who lives in this class, who deals in secrets and tells naught but lies. Next tell me what's always the last thing to mend. The middle of middle and end of the end, and finally give me her sound often heard during the search for a hard to find word. Now string them together and answer me this, which creature would you be unwilling to guess?" Harry gaped at her. "Could I have it again more slowly?" he asked. She blinked at him, smiled, and repeated the poem. "All the clues add up to creature I wouldn't want to kiss," Harry asked. She merely smiled her mystery smile. Harry took that for a yes. Harry cast his mind around. There were plenty of animals he wouldn't want to kiss. His immediately thought was a blessed underscript, but something told him that wasn't the answer. He'd have to try and work out the clues. "A person in disguise," Harry muttered, starting at her. "Who lies? That be an impostor? No, that's not my guess. A spy? I'll come back to that. Could you give me the next clue again, please?" She repeated the next lines of the poem. "The last thing to mend," Harry repeated. "I've no idea. Middle of middle. Could I have the last bit again?" She gave him the last 4 lines. A sound often heard in the search for a hard to find word, said Harry. "Are that be or hound on are a sound?" The Sphinx smiled at him. Spy, said Harry, passing up and down himself. "A creature I wouldn't want to kiss, a spider?" The Sphinx smiled more broadly. She got up, stretched her front legs, and then moved aside for him to pass. "Thanks," said Harry, and amazed at his own brilliance, he dashed forward. He had to be close now. He had to be. His want was telling him he was bang on course. As long as he didn't meet anything too horrible, he might be in with a chance. He had the choice of pass up ahead. "Point me." He whipped again to his wand, and it spun around and pointed him to the right-hand one. He dashed up this one and saw light ahead. The wizard cup was gleaming on the plains 100 yards away. Harry had just broken into a run when a dark figure halted out onto the path in front of him. Cedric was going to get there first. Cedric was sprinting as fast as he could towards the cup, and Harry knew he would never catch up. Cedric was much taller, had much longer legs. Then Harry saw something immense over a hedge to his left, moving quickly along a path that intersected with his own. It was moving so fast. Cedric was about to run into it. and Tedric, his eyes on the cup, had not seen it. "Tedric, Harry beloved, on your left." Cedric looked around just in time to hurl himself past the things and avoid colliding with it, but in his haste he tripped. Harry saw Tedric's wand fly out of his hand as a giant spider stepped into the path and began to bear down upon Cedric.